So I think that transhumanism, especially during the 90s, played a very important role in creating a forum where these ideas could be explored. That this was in conferences and an internet mailing list, and a lot of these really sort of advanced issues about the long-term impact of technology with nanotechnology, space colonization, AI, human enhancement were at least at that point in time almost exclusively discussed in this transhumanist forum, and certainly the discussion was more advanced there than anywhere else. I think that's like a great contribution that transhumanism has made to the world, and I think it still has the potential to continue that awareness spreading role. If I were to make some criticism, I think that there's been a tendency among some transhumanists to feel that it was their obligation to be the cheerleaders of technological change and to defend any and all forms of technological change against any and all forms of objections and criticism. I think that's unnecessary. It's just like a burden that we can just lift off of our shoulder and drop. There is no reason to feel that one has to defend all forms of technological change. Like just stop doing it and you will feel relieved that you no longer have to try to make that argument. You can still emphasize the great potential if technology is developed and used wisely and fairly, that there's just this enormous space of possible modes of being, that human life can become something far greater than what we know, and that ultimately technology is needed to realize that potential. I think that's the core of the transhumanist vision, but that's consistent with there being huge risks and there being the possibility of technology being used for huge evil, and it being the case that current technologies often don't work very well, and that you should be skeptical of just popping a lot of pills and hoping that you will derive great benefits from that. So it's consistent to have this ultimately very optimistic view about what can happen if everything goes right, and that technology has a big part in that. And at the same time being skeptical about what technology can do now, and about what the risks that we will confront in actually realizing this immense goal. But keeping that vision in live of what's ultimately possible, I think is an important component here among all this talk of risk and downside. Back in 1998, I founded this World Transhumanist Association with David Pearce. And the reason was there were a couple of reasons. So one was to create a platform that could sort of cater to a wide range of different forms of transhumanism. Because some of the basic transhumanist ideas can be combined with political views from left and from the right and from the middle and apolitical views. And it seemed useful to have a sort of a more broad-ranging form of transhumanism than extropianism, which was a kind of the thing that existed before that. Another was to try to bring into the mainstream, in particular the academic mainstream, some of these issues about human enhancement and enhancement ethics. And just try to encourage a wider public discussion about these things and awareness that the human condition as we know it is not an eternally given constant. It's not a fixed parameter. It's something that probably will change over the coming decades. And you need to really take that into account if you want to have some serious view about where we should be going, what we should be hoping for in the world. And I think that, at least in those two respects, the World Transhumanist Association has actually been a success. It is now the case that in bioethics, for instance, there are books, seminars, papers published all the time on human enhancement ethics. It has entered the mainstream. And I think that if you asked many sort of educated people or intellectual leaders what about their vision for the future, that there's a greater fraction of them at least would take into account the possibility of fundamental technological changes to human nature than was the case 10 years ago. I still think there is a lot further to go in that respect, obviously. But insofar as transhumanism can continue to serve that role of raising awareness, bringing these topics into the center of attention and getting people to widen their horizon and thinking of the human condition not as an eternally given, but something that perhaps can change and will change. That's a very important value that transhumanism brings to the world, in addition to sort of being an actual kind of social community for the people who are actively engaged themselves.